Judas Priest with Firepower, the brand new album from the long-lasting, just seemingly immortal gods of metal, and this one has a lot riding on the line. The last couple of Judas Priest albums have been decent enough, however, there has certainly been some criticism that as age has crept up with them, that the material has certainly gone south, which you can kind of expect. They were hoping for something that has a lot more of that classic bite to it. Looking at this album, and then of course looking at some of the drama that surrounded it, seeing that Glenn Tipton now is going to be retiring, seeing that the band is now in their 60s, is Judas Priest still able to give us and deliver us a kick-ass heavy metal record in this era? So, 14 tracks immediately kind of gives me this sort of feeling that maybe this is another Nostradamus, maybe this is another Angel of Retribution. This has that potential, but then I take a look at how this is constructed, and it's constructed in a way that reminds me a little bit of a classic Judas Priest album, and that being Painkiller, with a lot of the tracks on the early parts of the album, the first half being a little bit shorter, which also means that they are a little bit more direct and a little bit more furious, with the latter part of the album being a bit more lengthy and having a bit more bite and substance to it. So what do we have? Do we have really the 2018 version of Painkiller on our hands? Now, we've heard Firepower, we've heard Lightning Strike. We know that these two tracks are very good. Both of them are right there in the range of 3.5 minutes. They do what they need to do, and then they get out of Dodge. That's already a great start. Evil Never Dies shows that no matter what age Rob Halford is, he could be 99 years old in a assisted living facility, and he is just going to be going down the hallways, hitting high notes, and high notes that everybody else couldn't even do like half of, or like 10 times less, you know. He's going down there, ah! And they would be going down there going, ah! And it's a great track. It's one that really shows some early dominance from this album. Never the Heroes does the same thing, and both of these tracks being now 4.5 minutes shows that they can up the ante a little bit and still are really delivering some pretty nice goods. Necromancer, Children of the Sun, going into Guardians, and Rising from Ruins all have some great little moments to them, but now you have to understand that Judas Priest, being in the heavy metal biz now for close to 50 years, you're not going to really surprise a crowd all of that much with what you have, especially whenever you are really embroiled within your own classic trademark sound, and that's sort of what's going on here. These are good tracks. They are certainly passable tracks. They have great moments. The guitar work is very good. Rob, of course, sounds very good for his age, but it's not something where you are just sort of kicked in the teeth and, you know, your eyes are just wide open wondering, holy crap, how is this happening? But you are still impressed at the fact that this does feel not only a lot more competent, but a lot better than perhaps some of the previous output has felt whenever you listen to them initially. Going into the second half of this disc, which has a lot riding on it. So this is one where that length needs to have a lot of grip behind it. It has to have a ton of traction. The guitar work has to be top-notch. The songwriting has to be very well constructed. Going into Spectra, Traitor's Gate, No Surrender, and Lone Wolf, those 4 tracks specifically are the focus points for me. And really getting into those songs, I think that they are able to retain some of that Painkiller charm, only because they do have a lot of similarity to them, which is very similar to what you get with Painkiller on tracks such as A Touch of Evil, Between the Hammer and the Anvil, and even the closer, One Shot at Glory. But with this right here, it still has and retains itself within a little bit of a sonic bubble, but is able to explode through a little bit of creative songwriting in spots and in spurts, as opposed to one track maybe having something that is totally unique to it, and then the other tracks having something that's totally unique to them. Instead, this is one that stays a little bit more within that bubble, but just the execution is well done, and that's what makes these songs really have that feel to it. And then we get to Sea of Red. Sea of Red is a track that I will mention briefly, but then I have sort of an overall collective synopsis that's about not only that track, but also the album and the band as a whole. And that Sea of Red being close to 6 minutes is extremely different. It dials things back. It is Judas Priest taking things a little bit more slowly, having a lot more heart. Rob doesn't necessarily go absolutely absurd with the vocals here. It is a very tepid but very respectful song. It's one that has a real memory to it, and it retains itself with you. The construction of this is very nice, and everything just sort of hints that if this is the last thing that Judas Priest records and releases, that would be okay. And that's where I'm getting at with all of this. It's kind of where I get with Firepower as a whole. I would be perfectly fine with this being Judas Priest's final release, and I think that it almost should be Judas Priest's final release, almost like Painkiller was nearly their final release, and it was the final release of the first part of the Rob Halford era, and this is why I think that. Because everybody was clamoring for a brand new Painkiller. They've been wanting that for, nearly 28 years, and I think they finally got something that, while it's not comparable, is about as close as you're going to get. Granted some of the factors that are in mind. Granted the band's age. Granted how many albums that they have released. Granted you no longer have a surprise factor. I think this is the most well put together and competent release that Judas Priest have delivered to us ever since Painkiller. I'm not putting it right there on par with it. I'm putting it definitely a lot, definitely underneath of that, but it is still a release that has sort of that veneer to it that feels like it's going to go down as one of Judas Priest's more important albums whenever all is said and done. And if this is all is said and done, what a way to go out. And I also feel that with a track such as Sea is Red, you have sort of that very classy, very kind of distinct and honorable sounding song right there at the end, just by tone alone, not necessarily by lyrical content, not necessarily, some message where you can plainly tell that the band is saying goodbye. But if this ends up being that last track, that is a superb way to go out. It is a classy way to go out. As I said, it's a very honorable way to go out. It's a fantastic final song, and the album wraps up the way that it should. Now, like I said, this is not Painkiller. This is not a 30 out of 30 classic, of heavy metal. But what this is for Judas Priest is a phenomenal offering, granted the age, granted those other factors that we spoke about, and really at a time where a Judas Priest release maybe doesn't elicit as much excitement as it once did. This one is actually very deserving of that excitement. This one is actually very deserving of that fan that maybe has drifted away to come back in and take that cautionary listen and actually enjoy himself or herself a lot more than perhaps they did with some of the prior releases. That curiosity always overtakes fans that have maybe migrated to other forms of music or metal. This is one where whenever they come back, I think they're going to feel very strong and very, very excited about. They're going to enjoy this release quite a bit. That said, this is still only a 22 out of 30, and the reason for that is because Judas Priest, even whenever they pull no punches, are really a band whose punches are very telegraphed. We understand what Judas Priest is capable of. We know what Judas Priest's game plan is. The main difference between this album and some of the priors, such as the Nostradamuses of the world, is that this one here feels like the execution was at a top level. And again, that's why I feel like this could be the last ride for this band, because they have gone out with sincerely their best album since Painkiller. So we will see what happens whenever it comes to that. We will see how Glenn's farewell, what that does for this band. We know that KK is no longer a part of this. Judas Priest is now becoming a band that is had to go a little bit younger just to keep going. Is that something that's going to continue, or is it better off for Rob to focus now solely on his solo career, similar to Ozzy Osbourne, rather than trying to resuscitate and keep on life support a band that continuously is losing primary members? I want to know what you think about Firepower as well. Please let me know in the comments below, and remember that during the month of March, we are doing a special over on the Amazon page, so you can pick this up over there. You'll see links in the description box, and every proceed that I make from the Amazon page is going to go toward our 50-50 one-of-a-kind pets streamathon goal. And so that means that everything that I make, the 5% royalty or whatever that I gain from any purchase made from those links, and it doesn't have to just be music, it could be whatever you want, that is 100% going toward that cause. It's going to help out pets in need, and it's just such a great facility and such a great cause. So definitely pick yourself something out today. including Judas Priest's Firepower, which I feel is exceptionally worth your money and your time and your purchase. So let me know what your thoughts are about this album once you get a chance to listen to it in the comments below. I'm CoverkillerNation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.